Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Welcome to Harvest Your Own. Today we're back on fishing. Although this is a topic that most anglers probably don't discuss much, it's fish diseases and fisheries health and some of the emerging threats that are coming into Alberta. Today we have Dr. Trish Kelley, who specializes in fish health and biosecurity, and also Emmanuel Pila, who is the laboratory lead and molecular biologist and lead of our provincial fish disease lab. Welcome.
Thanh you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How are you guys doing today?
Very well.
Very good.
Yeah.
Talking about fish is always interesting. We got a huge audience and people always want to find out more about what their passion is in life. So, Trish, tell me a little bit about yourself, what a fish health and biosecurity specialist is, and how you got into it.
Okay. I started with the government of Alberta working as a regional biologist in Fort McMurray. When whirling disease came to the province, I started working on whirling disease biosecurity in aquaculture facilities. We have a number of commercial facilities throughout the province, and keeping whirling disease out of them and making sure that infected fish didn't move anywhere in the province was a really high priority. And now I work on wild populations and those that are inside facilities. I write a lot of policy. Unfortunately, now a lot of my work is sitting at my desk. I design policy, monitoring studies, and environmental impact of disease. So.
Right. Well, that's the base of how we get started to handle things in the province. So policy is important. It pulls you out of the field, and some of us would miss the field work because we love to be outside. But
all of us miss the field work.
Right. That's why we get in the first place. Emmanuel, tell us about this wonderful lab in Alberta that we have.
Alberta has a wonderful provincial lab that tests for fish diseases for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes it's for disease investigation when we have unknown mortalities, and as well as for surveillance and research purposes, and for stocking and transfer of fish. So all of these different projects require disease testing to ensure that we're not spreading diseases around or introducing new ones to the province.
Yeah, we probably never even considered that 50 years ago. We'd move fish around, try to establish new species and populations and stuff without much of a thought. But today that never happens, does it?
No. The due diligence requires that we continue to test to ensure that our fish sustainability and threats that come from diseases are eliminated or minimized.
Yeah. So how did you get into fish disease lab work and being a specialist in that field?
I actually started as a molecular biologist during the peak of the response to whirling disease. I joined the government to help set up the lab in Vegreville that was dedicated for whirling disease testing. And recently, just last year, we upgraded that lab and relocated it to Edmonton, and we have new state-of-the-art equipment and infrastructure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So a state-of-the-art lab, brand new, basically. You're moved in and keeping busy.
Yes.
Who are your clients?
We work mostly with internal clients, so regional biologists for the government, mostly fish pathologists, as well as other partners like Parks Canada, who also have jurisdiction on some of the species that we test.
Very interesting. So it sounds like the common denominator for most of us at the table, all of us, is whirling disease. It kind of shaped where we headed? I'm saying that because I sat on the whirling disease task force before we ever had it in Alberta. I think we started 5 years before the first cases were found, but we sort of set a roadmap for what would happen when it was found, how it would be dealt with, and all the rest of it. And I'm guessing that some of that work done way back then is what you guys are looking at now, but it's probably been refined and continues to change policy, Trish, in terms of how we handle fish, move fish, what anglers do, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Whirling disease is sort of a gateway drug to other fish diseases for all of us.
Oh, well, interesting. Well, we'll have to get into that for sure, but are there many fish diseases in Alberta?
There are several fish diseases in Alberta. Whirling disease is sort of a big deal for us because it's an invasive species. The parasite that causes whirling disease is originally from Europe. But there are a number of endemic diseases present in Alberta. And some of them are things that anglers would be really familiar with, like black spot disease. There are a number of tapeworms that you can find inside fish.
Right.
I'm sure you've seen them.
Yes, we have.
So anything that encysts in fish, that's something that people commonly see. Walleye tend to have lymphocystis in the spring, and they develop those large kind of lumps.
The eruptions that look kind of rude and nasty. People are some of them are afraid to touch them. It's no harm to people, though.
No. None of those are harmful to people. I mean, they look bad.
Right.
I probably wouldn't target eating the lumps on a walleye myself. But there isn't anything in those fish that is contagious. The only thing that is an endemic disease, I think, that's transferable to people is something called Diphyllobothrium, which causes diphyllobothriasis. And Diphyllobothrium is a type of tapeworm. And it encysts inside the muscle of the fish. So if you eat that, you can end up with some pretty severe intestinal problems.
Oh, wow.
And so can your dogs and cats. So you need to freeze your fish or cook it, preferably.
Now, you don't often see the cysts in a lot of our fish like we do in cod that's caught in the ocean, but lake trout are, for example, they're very obvious. Like they're big cysts. They're like an egg within the flesh. Is that what you're talking about?
Sometimes you might see them like a big egg inside. Sometimes they're quite small, and it would take a lot of effort to find them. And the unfortunate thing is that you don't need a lot of cysts to get a tapeworm.
Cook your fish. There's some very good advice. It's interesting because I'm sure a lot of anglers don't think much of diseases. We certainly see black spot. We certainly see tapeworms and worms and whitefish when we clean them, but no one seems to worry too much about them, especially because we know we're cooking them. But great advice. Don't eat raw fish. Cook them. I think most of us are on that side of the equation anyway. Some people like ceviche, but I don't know if cooking them with an acid, with like lemon juice or something, actually would kill the parasite itself.
I don't know. I would say not.
Good advice.
I would err on the side of caution. I mean, I can't give human health advice, but
Right.
I would err on the side of caution.
So what is the history of fish diseases in Alberta? Where did it all start when we started to find them, see them, pay attention, start worrying about stuff? And I say worry in the sense that, Emmanuel, you've got a lab where you're not moving fish from A to B unless we look at them and make sure that everything's clean. Where did that all get started?
Fish diseases have always been an issue. One of the pathogens that I can talk about that caused issues back in the 80s, it's the IPN, infectious pancreatic necrosis virus, which is found in the Cold Lake area. So there are many pathogens, but usually a few of them will always cause disease when they are present, but majority are what we consider opportunistic and secondary pathogens, and will only affect fish when their immune system is weakened by something else.
Interesting.
Stress. But IPN, whirling disease that came 10 years ago, some of the examples that I can mention.
Right. IPN was big news for a few years, and whirling disease was, I'd say we heard a lot about it for many years, but we don't hear a lot about it now. How big a problem is it in Alberta?
It's difficult to say at this point. We're at about the 10-year window since it was discovered here, which is the time that we would expect to start seeing large-scale population changes or issues in populations. In Alberta, we've kind of gone back and forth with what we're going to do to manage fish changes and changes in population. There's no way that we can eradicate that parasite once it's been established in any of these waters. So that's kind of the unfortunate news. We have seen some strong localized ecological impacts in the crow's nest, where a lot of juvenile rainbow trout have shown signs of disease. But so far as collapsing or seeing, widespread die-offs or extirpations of populations, I think people generally think of Colorado and the impacts that we saw there.
Pretty severe.
Yeah, very severe. But when you compare Colorado to Montana, and Colorado did a lot of work. They threw everything they could at dealing with whirling disease. And Montana didn't do as much. And they've both sort of ended up in kind of the same spot. When we compare those two, Montana does seem to have more diffuse effects, not as significant changes in population. So there were losses, absolutely, and some rivers were hit harder than others. But we didn't see, full-scale collapse of fisheries where things needed to be restocked or there was no hope. And whether or not Alberta is going to follow the same trajectory as Montana or as Colorado is really difficult to say. I don't want to make a prediction. It's really a wild guess and speculation, but whirling disease is a temperature moderated disease, and with Montana being colder than Colorado and Alberta being colder than Montana
most years,
we might expect to see sort of a lower increase in infection, maybe some of those more diffuse effects. Maybe time for those populations to develop immunity before we see collapse or extirpation.
Right. Very interesting. For the listeners, whirling disease is spread by a parasite that starts in the substrate of our rivers.
It starts inside a worm,
right,
called tubifex.
Right.
Yep.
That's in the substrate.
It is in the substrate.
And it, long story short, it basically comes out and affects the nervous system of the trout and their growth. And most of the deformations occur somewhere close to the tail or in the tail, and what causes them to whirl when they swim because of the deformation. That
is why it's called whirling disease.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it tends to sort of attack nerves, so their nervous system, and then we see those effects on cartilage too. So we see a lot of changes in the tail, like you see that black tail, the crooked spine, which, is not always an indicator because there's a lot of reasons that a fish could have a crooked spine.
Right.
But we also see some changes in their head shape and their face shape, where like they'll have a small operculum where you can see their gills, or like a shortened snout.
Yep. Is it easy to see in the lab? When it comes in, do you just look at it and say, oh, that's whirling disease? Or do you have to dig in and sort of take it apart? Do you actually find the parasite or just the effects of it?
Usually those signs, blackened tail, shortened operculum, are telltale signs, but they are not conclusive, so we still need to do tests at the lab. There are two main methods that we use. The more efficient and quicker one is the polymerase chain reaction that is used to detect. But there's also microscopy, where you look for the life stages of the parasites under a microscope to identify them.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
I sort of lead the conversation along because we're going to go into how fish diseases are spread, and then basically what anglers can watch for and do as well. So how are fish diseases spread?
They can be spread a lot of ways. Some of those ways are natural. And, when we're talking about natural spread of disease, some of it is just movement downstream, movement upstream, because fish can move and they'll take their diseases with them. We see some movement. If you think of, an eagle that catches a fish or an osprey and drops it somewhere else. And now we've got a diseased fish in a new system
interesting.
where there was not one before.
You mean they don't eat everything they catch?
I think they try.
Right.
And then, we do expect and we see movement of parasites or bacteria or invasive plants potentially on fur and feathers when animals move between locations. Similarly, we would see that in boats and water that gets moved inside boats or in buckets or on waders.
The old clean, drain, dry. We're getting taught that we have to maintain our equipment and our boats and don't transfer anything from one water body to the other. A lot of it is interprovincially, but we really need to look at it right in our home waters and do it at home as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Clean, drain, dry is our primary messaging, and one of the most important things that not just anglers, but all recreational users of water can do to protect the waters that they're recreating in. So even down to like if you're ATVing and you're crossing a stream, it is important to clean off any plants, any mud, anything that might be stuck to that equipment. Same with boats. I think everybody knows that it's very important to pull the plug before you
it's illegal not to. It's a big ticket.
It's a big ticket.
Yeah. Very interesting. It's a great topic because most anglers in Alberta are very passionate about fishing. So the more knowledge they have, the more they will comply, I believe. If you tell them that you drive through a stream with your quad and get mud on your tires, you could transfer to another place, another stream, another water body. All of a sudden the light goes on and they'll stop clean their equipment, whether it's a boat, an ATV, but even your fishing waders and boots and shoes are important. If you're some of my buddies, they fish, I bet you 5-6 days a week, and they're seldom in the same water body 2 days in a row. Mm-hmm. So it's very important messaging to tell them, like, take good care of your equipment, and that means cleaning them every time before you go to some new place.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we stress as one of the most important things is to really make sure that you're getting the mud out of the bottom of your waders. And I know, because I have to clean my boots and my waders too. Yep. I know what a pain that is. I know what a struggle it is. And I know how sometimes it's like, oh, it's really good enough. But it is very important to remove as much of that as possible. If you're washing anything, we use squat to decontaminate our waders. Having any of that sort of substrate attached tends to lessen the efficacy and hide some of those things that we're trying to kill. So it really is a very important step, is to thoroughly clean everything, drain any equipment, and then to really give it a solid amount of time to dry.
Yeah, the drying is a very important part of it.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. I use a little bit of bleach, and I find a scrub brush cleans up real quick and shortens the job. But you do it on site too. You don't take it somewhere else and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely don't take it to the next stream and wash it on the shore before you go in. But if you don't have the opportunity to do it in the field where you're at, being able to do it at home and having that water flow into like municipal drainage,
it all goes somewhere.
Yeah. Not across the landscape and definitely not into another water course.
Right.
But yeah, it is, stream side is best, but if you can do it in your home.
Emmanuel, can fish stocking contribute to disease spread? Do you test fish before they're stocked out?
Yes, we test fish before they are stocked. During the spawn camps, for instance, the samples are taken before they're taken to the released from the facility where they've been raised. We test them for diseases to ensure that they are not spread. And this is because for many of the fish diseases, prevention is our best tool that we can use.
Number one.
Since it's very challenging to eliminate them once they spread. And disease like whirling disease, not every water body it's infected. So it's good to continue this testing and prevention of spread.
Oh, excellent. Sounds like everyone's working together for it. Now, we talked about whirling disease, IPN, and other diseases that have been around Alberta. A lot of anglers might not have ever heard of Proliferative Kidney Disease, or PKD. What is that?
That is our newest disease of emerging concern. PKD is very similar to whirling disease. It is a parasite that has a 2-host life cycle, one of those hosts being salmonids. It is also temperature moderated, like whirling disease is. Maybe the biggest difference, though, is that there is evidence to suggest that PKD originated in North America. So it's a disease that's here already. It's not something that's come in from somewhere else and is now having a huge effect on naive fish populations that have no immune resistance to it. The concern, though, maybe with PKD is that as we see water temperatures rising and as we see hotter summers, longer summers, summers with more drought and lower flow, we may see larger outbreaks of clinical disease in fish that would not have had those symptoms before. And not to beat Colorado up too much, but I think that when people hear of PKD, they do think of the Yellowstone River outbreak, where there was a huge mass fish kill in the summer that ended up closing. I want to say it was about 270-ish kilometers of river to fishing.
Significant. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it primarily rivers, or can it happen in ponds, lakes, other water bodies as well?
It can happen in ponds, lakes. There are, there's poor evidence, I think Emmanuel and I discussed this once, that it can infect fish that aren't salmonids.
Oh, wow.
There was the American Fisheries Association Blue Book says that it infects pike, but I'm not sure that we've ever really seen that. But whitefish are very susceptible, and there are a lot of whitefish in lakes.
Yeah, and different species.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How would we look for PKD? What are the signs?
Just as the name implies, it affects kidney primarily and a few of the other organs like the spleen and liver. The disease, the parasite that causes the disease multiplies. It triggers an immense immune response in the fish. There's lots of division of the cells in the kidney, so that leads to swollen kidney. The fish are normally lethargic. They might have darkened appearance. There's also anemia, which is loss of red blood cells, so the gills will often appear pale to appearance. So those signs point us to the disease, but they are not exclusively PKD signs. But once you see those, you can at least suspect PKD.
Right. Yeah. So what do you do if anglers find a fish that they suspect has PKD?
We don't ever want people to pull fish out of the water and send them in, especially when we're talking about diseases that can affect species at risk, native trout. We definitely don't want to see suspected cases being hauled out and sent to us. But if you do see fish with any kind of disease that you think is abnormal or that you have a concern about, you can email pictures of that fish to us.
Good old cell phones. Everyone's got one.
Absolutely. Our email address is aep.whirl, WHIRL, @gov.ab.ca, or you can phone our hotline. You can call 1-855-336-BOAT or 2628 for any whirling disease, fish disease, or aquatic invasive species concerns.
Yeah, it's a good number to remember because we do see a lot of things on the water, and anglers are everywhere fish are in Alberta. So there's a lot of eyes out there for you to help identify things, or try to. I guess pictures that would have those telltale signs that we talk about are worth investigating. That's where your teams come in to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. And anglers are a really important partner for us when we're investigating fish disease, or we're looking at at population impacts or ecosystem scale impacts, because you're right, they are the ones who are out on the landscape. People like yourself who've been fishing for many years, if you're returning to the same sites, you're going to notice a change. And when you report that change to us, either at a regional biologist level or if you send it into us because you've got disease concerns, it is something that we look at and that we do take seriously. And we really appreciate every report that we receive.
This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, there's a comprehensive collection of information. To gain insight and knowledge, head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game to make the connection between health and food.
Now, PKD is fairly new. Like we said, whirling disease has been at least a decade. Where did it start? Where is it in Alberta?
That's a very good question. It's new in the sense that we're now looking at it and we're considering it as this emerging threat. We think maybe it's been here the whole time, but wow. It was found in Banff, and the national parks have a very robust disease monitoring program. They're not especially riddled with disease. They just test all of their lakes and water bodies very thoroughly, very often. But we have since then found it in the Bow River. So that's a risk to that fishery that's there potentially. We've also found it in the northeast in the province in a lake called Hanmore Lake. This summer, we're doing a significant amount of eDNA sampling. So we're going across the province, testing a lot of different water bodies, and we should have a better idea of where it's located and the extent of it soon.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that it was probably here in the first place and then say, well, our cases are like the Bow River and Hanmore because they're not very close to each other.
No.
And they're very different fisheries as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's an interesting observation right there, or occurrence that is going on. What are we going to see eventually from PKD in the Bow River? Smaller fish, different species, change in the ecology, season closures? Is there anything that could happen?
We probably won't be seeing smaller fish. The unfortunate thing, I think, with PKD is that you don't tend to see something until it's quite a severe impact. We may see fish that have more stress on them, so they're not thriving. We may see lower recruitment numbers because young fish aren't surviving their initial infection. But fish who do get infected with PKD, if they survive that initial infection, tend to have lifelong immunity. So they won't continue to be infected. They won't continue to be diseased through the rest of their life. And they can still grow up and be
normal fish,
healthy, normal fish. But unfortunately, when we see impacts, so in the Yellowstone, when there was that big fish kill, it was the second of 2 years where they had 2 bad factors for disease, which was low water flow and high temperatures.
We've seen a lot of the climate change here in Alberta. We'll call it climate change because this spring has been extremely cold and everyone's wearing a jacket today. Last year was an extreme drought. I don't think I've ever seen it so dry in this part of Alberta. 90% of the wetlands were bone dry and not a lot of flow in the rivers and all the rest of it. So it's, I guess you could have dramatic impacts depending on the year and what's going on environmentally. Yeah,
absolutely. With disease, when you're looking at things like drought, especially if you're looking at drought over many years, one of the main things that does is reduce the amount of space that fish can be in, right? So you're taking away so much of their habitat. They're all touching each other. They're all touching, rubbing up against the other host for PKD. And that feedback cycle and that infection with pathogen has a great opportunity to increase and spread.
Interesting. How does it spread?
So just like whirling disease, there is a spore that the fish release that is taken up by the primary host, which is it's called a bryozoan. It's kind of a small invertebrate that can form little colonies in the water, which is also native to the province. So no one needs to remove them if they see bryophytes. And then those release spores that are taken up into the fish.
Interesting. Are there still research gaps? Are we still researching PKD to see or find out more about it?
We are still researching PKD to find out more about it. Most of the research that's been done on PKD so far has been in Europe, where we suspect that it's a invasive species.
Interesting. That's gone the opposite way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Europe giveth and
Yep.
taketh away, I guess. The gaps here are, we don't know at what point those temperature changes will impact disease. Like there's windows and there's thermal tolerances that fish have. So we don't know exactly when something's going to impact population. We don't know how infectious each strain is, which is also fairly important when we're talking about pathogens. Different strains are differently infectious and can have very different outcomes.
Like colds and viruses for humans.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very interesting. Some of the research that's being done in the province of Emmanuel, do you get to take part of that, or are you just always in the lab?
I get to participate in the research as well, especially those that have disease testing components in them as well.
You've also come netting with us.
Yes.
Yep. Now, is that a fun part of the job, or do you rather be in the lab? Is the lab your space?
It's always fun to get out of the lab. In terms of research areas around PKD, I wanted to add the effect of other pathogens, because fish are rarely infected by just one pathogen as well. So the interaction of those effects can also inform whether the effect will be severe or not.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. How much does habitat and water quality play into it? Obviously, with droughts and heat and stuff, that's one factor. But we try hard to protect our waterways and our shorelines and stuff like that for the habitat for the aquatic species. Is that a key for this as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With whirling disease and with any fish disease, really, habitat is a very critical component. And keeping our ecosystems healthy is one of the most important things that we can do to preserve those fish populations. And so when we're thinking about shorelines, we want to see, cover over those trout streams. So trees that are leaning over, shade, it keeps the water cooler. It also provides protection from avian predators. It also, I think, creates like a level of refugia for prey, because you would end up with more bugs and that sort of thing if there's something overhanging. Water quality, salinity, if there's runoff from farms or industrial activity, anything like that, selenium that would affect fish and cause them to sort of not thrive, it does suppress their immune system and it makes them more susceptible to disease, any disease, or less able to deal with diseases they may already have.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is great information for the average Albertan and especially for anglers, but we don't want to scare people either. There's, you say things and people get to be fear-mongering, or there's myths that get out there, public perception. Where's there a balance? Is PKD fish safe to eat? Should anglers be worried about this?
I feel like the balance between panic and, calmness is kind of like a spectrum. So you could fall somewhere along that range of like absolute panic and moderate concern. I will say that the fish are safe to eat. You don't have anything to worry about from PKD in terms of catching disease. Sources of information, I would be cautious about social media. Messages can tend to get exaggerated or twisted pretty quickly on social media, especially when it's something that people care a lot about. And I know it's really scary. The thought of losing fish species, the thought of being able to angle somewhere, or having that opportunity, or even the idea of losing those pristine habitats and the waterways that we're proud of having in Alberta. But there are ways that we can also protect them, which is, making sure that we're not taking trees down or mowing things right down to the lakefront, making sure that we're advocating for safe, healthy waterways that don't have runoff, that don't have input from other things, keeping flows regulated and normal and high, which can sometimes be sort of tough.
Yes. It's important. I think that these types of podcasts and information sources are critical because we're getting the right information. It's not something on social media. It's not something that somebody surmises or has built out of proportion. I remember when whirling disease wasn't in Alberta, people were like, man, if that comes here, we'll never fish trout again. It's going to wipe us out. We're so susceptible. Well, we've had it 10 years. We're still fishing trout. There are some hot spots. There's some problem areas, but that's the nice part about having fish disease teams like yourself. You're on it. So there is a positive in this. Not that the disease is here, but it is being managed, watched for, and I don't know what the right word is, because you can't really manage it, but you can help contain it and make sure that it doesn't become a bigger problem. Yeah,
absolutely. That containment of whirling disease especially is potentially why we have not seen catastrophic loss yet. Is as long as that distribution stays patchy and the pathogen load stays low, we probably have a much better chance of protecting those stocks than if we kind of think of it as like, well, whirling disease is already there, so it doesn't matter if I clean and drain and dry my gear.
Right. The complete opposite. We don't want it to go any further. So.
Yeah, exactly. And, even when we know that something is a whirling disease positive location, there's still concern about introducing more spore burden into that waterway.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think the key messages are anglers still play a very big role. Clean, drain, dry. Don't forget it. Do it every time. Pull your plug. It's the law. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Maintaining and advocating for healthy fish ecosystems is also very important. I encourage everyone that has angling near and dear to their heart to join groups, sportsmen's groups, conservation groups that play a role in this, and maybe entertain the fact with your kids that they could grow up to be a lab fish specialist or a microbiologist or, things that could help anyone and everything within our fish world moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I have the coolest job in the world. So.
It sounds like it. And how's yours, Emmanuel? Yours is pretty cool too, though.
Yeah, it's interesting. We get to see all the effects.
Right. Any other key messages for folks out there about diseases in general, or advice or words of caution, or where are we going from today? I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think we have problems, but where are we going to end up with all this stuff?
I would say I agree. It's not doom and gloom. With PKD, it's hard to predict. It's somewhat reassuring to know that if it's been here the whole time, that there may be some level of immunity already present in the fish. With whirling disease, we haven't seen catastrophic loss yet. That's not to say that we won't. We may have some rivers significantly impacted, while others may be more resilient. Hopefully that's the case. And yeah, I think I would stress that anglers do play a really critical role in conservation, like you said, joining those groups, advocating for clean waterways, making sure that you are taking care of your own personal gear and making sure that you're not spreading anything. Respecting regulations. I know no one loves regulations, but
they're there for a reason.
Yeah. And if you can, if you see anything unusual, if you have any concerns, reach out and report those things to us. And yeah, keep us informed of anything changing you see on the landscape. Yeah.
Emmanuel, quick question for you. We talk about some fish might be able to have immunity. Is there some way in what you do for a living to detect that? If a fish had PKD, or if you had one that, obviously you're not going to hold them in our hatcheries because that would be a bigger concern, but if you had one, is there some way to tell in the future if they hold an immunity? Is that a tough question?
Yes and no. Usually, immunity, in some respects, it doesn't entirely mean that the pathogens cannot get into the fish, but
Or out.
just that the severity of the disease, it's very minimal. The fish are able to survive and thrive while carrying the pathogen as well. So one way we can tell is survival rates in the field. But there are also techniques that you can use to test to determine if they are resistant or not.
Yeah, a very cool talk for me because I love what you guys are doing as careers. And I think a lot of our listeners will key into that too. So thank you for making the time to share this information. I think it's we're at a critical point with PKD. Any anglers I've talked to in the last few weeks telling them I was going to do this, they're like, oh, I hadn't heard about that. So I think we got to get the message out there. And it's not much different than whirling disease. You're going to maintain our fisheries and our waterways and our healthy environments by doing the same things. And always reflect on yourself. You're the one that can make the biggest difference. Lead by example.
Yeah. Thank you so much for allowing us to come in and talk about this too.
Yeah. We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.